Hey, welcome to Mosaic. We've got another Mosaic interview today, and I want to introduce to you Tim Lassetter. If you don't know him, I'd kind of be shocked if you're from Coweta County and you don't know him, because Tim seems to have an encyclopedic knowledge of where almost everybody lives in Coweta County. But don't be nervous. He's a good guy. He's not a bad guy at all. It's a good thing that he might know where you live. He is the vice chairman of the Coweta Board of Commissioners. He's married to Lisa. They've been married for 36 and a half years. He was telling me just a second ago. And I think that's great, because if he's still keeping up with the half years after 36 years, he must really love her. And she is something special. I do know her a little bit. And so just a great, incredible woman, good wife, all kinds of good things going on with Tim and his wife, Lisa. So anyway, how long have you been in Coweta County? And tell us a little bit about all that kind of thing.
Okay, I'm a lifelong resident of Coweta County.
Yeah.
All 62 years. My family, my parents still live here. We were educated in the public school system here in Coweta County. Yeah. And
you're the second person that I have met since I moved here about 2 years ago that has been in Coweta County their whole life.
Only the second.
Yeah, you're the second one. Were you born in the Noonan Hospital?
I was.
The old Noonan Hospital?
I was.
Okay, there you go. You're my second. What do we call them? Cowetans?
Absolutely.
Am I saying that right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this has been home to me, my parents, all of our lives, and have so many friends and family members that are still here.
Yeah. So how have you seen things? I mean, been here a long time. How have you seen things change? I imagine at one time there was a lot of cow pastures and farmland here, and now there's, if you're out on 34 at the right time of day, it's a parking lot.
Yeah, it's people can't believe it when I tell some stories that when I graduated from high school, 1976, there were less than 30,000 people in Coweta County.
Wow.
Now there's 140,000. And in fact, after graduating from college, I went to work for a company, Eckerd Drugs, legally distributing drugs for 28 and a half years.
Not everybody gets to be a drug dealer and stay out of jail, so way to go.
Or especially become an elected official.
Well, there's a lot of former
at least locally,
I think, are elected officials, but that's another story, right?
But we, just to give you an idea, at Eckerd, we had to petition GDOT to ask them to put a light where the Southtown racetrack, that intersection is of Amlajack and Bullsboro.
Sure.
There wasn't even a light there, and there was only, you only had to stop going to Peachtree City at Thomas Crossroads where Smith's Grocery used to be.
Right.
So, and the growth is amazing.
Yeah.
Especially on the east side of town and the north side of town.
Yeah. So I think some people are probably interested to know, but what are some of the projections for what population growth might look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's amazing to me, and I've got a feeling that people like myself and others that live here, when they see that there'll be over 200,000 during that time frame, they say, oh, that's not right. But I would have never thought it would have gone from 30,000 to 140 like we have now.
Yeah. Well, I can remember back in the 1990s, 97, 98, around there, I was living in Gwinnett County. And so when we would go to Panama City to go down to the beach, at that point, Noonan was just an exit on the way to Panama City. And I know when I came back here a couple years ago and came into Noonan, I was like, what in the world happened? I mean, it's like somebody just inflated a city, and just so much here. And there's so much here that's new, and there's so much here that's old. And I love the history of the city, and the fact that there are so many antebellum homes, and that there's been so much done to protect the heritage. And I love our downtown.
Me too.
And there are very few places in the South where the downtown has been preserved and then restored, and it's not a dump.
It's definitely a success story, what's happened, the revitalization of the downtown area, and being the city of homes. It is something that I think we can all be proud of.
Yeah.
One of the other things that's happened, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that live here that work elsewhere. I happen to be one of them, not necessarily by choice, but there are more opportunities here, though, and the medical community and the education. When I went to college, I commuted to Carrollton every day to go to West Georgia. And now we have the old hospital where I happen to have been born is now a campus of the University of West Georgia. So a lot of things have changed, and a lot of them for the good.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Well, I know that that you serve our county as on the board of commissioners. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what the board does, what things they're responsible for, because I find all that fascinating, and I think it's unique that people choose to serve in that capacity in what you're doing. So, but what do you guys do?
Our primary responsibility is creating and making ordinances for people to live by in the county. We also hear things like zoning matters. If you have a piece of property and wanted to change it to a different classification, we hear those. And then the day-to-day operation is run by the department heads through our county administrator, Mr. Fouts.
So, what drew you to get interested in serving in that kind of capacity?
I had been in some roles before. I got involved in the commission. Had participated and coached girls softball, as well as serve on the board and being the president of the Union County Girls Softball Association. And served on Calumet EMC Operation Roundup for a number of years. And serving and doing those kind of things perked my interest. And then there were another number of individuals that you mentioned earlier that I know quite a few people.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people that reached out to me and said, you need to consider this.
Yeah.
We need someone, representing our district from Coweta County. I do have only 20% of the population, but have 40% of the land mass. So it's the most rural area of the county that I represent. And a lot of those people, for some reason, probably because of the good name my parents had, were interested in getting me involved.
Yeah. Well,
and I was crazy enough to do it, I guess, Arthur.
Well, I was going to ask you. You said you started off with girls softball. Did you have to run for election for that? Did they vote you in? Or?
Again, I think that was just one of those cases where they tried to find somebody that was crazy enough to do it.
Yeah,
I was him.
I can understand that. I coached high school basketball one season. That was enough for me. I guess the next question that I would want to ask you is that my guess is that you're a very patient man, that you're a good listener. My guess is that you've got a lot of integrity, because when people come get you and recruit you to an office, it's because they see really good qualities in you. And so what is it that you find to be some of the most important character qualities that are important for someone to serve in a capacity like you do?
Being willing to listen, even if it's something you don't want to hear. Having other individuals that are a lot smarter than me that I can call on to ask questions about when things are brought to my attention that I don't have a clue about. And then lastly, I think it's important, no matter what role we're in, to at least be able to tell a man or a woman or visitor to the county that no, this is not what I can support, so that at least they hear the same thing when they're speaking to me individually that they would in the chambers of the commission.
Right.
You mentioned integrity. My father in particular and my grandfathers all told me a man's only as good as his word. And one of my grandfathers told me, and if you can't trust a man, you don't need to spend any more time with him than you have to.
Yeah.
And, you know, not being ugly, but pointing out the fact that, you know, there are certain things like that that are critical in our relationship with one another, and I try to live by that.
Well, I think that's great. And, you know, I think one of the things that is missing in the lives of so many men in America, and from what I can tell from so many people who serve in a political office in America, is humility. And when I listen to you and when I hear your response right then, that's the word that comes screaming at me, is that you know, there's this idea that people who serve in politics are statesmen. They're there to serve the people, and it's not about, hey, what can I do, and exerting power on people, but how can I serve people? And when I sit here and listen to you, I see and hear a servant heart in you, and so I'm very thankful for that. That's so refreshing to hear. So I wanted to ask you, you know, I think part of probably the reason that you have such a servant heart is because I'm guessing your faith plays a role in that. And so what kind of role does your faith and your relationship with Jesus Christ, how does that work into you serving in our community and in our county and even with your family? How does that work?
Well, you know, like I've heard you say many times, my sister and I, we had a drug problem when we were little too. We were drugged to church every Sunday.
Amen.
And we learned at a young age things in the Bible that, and even at home, I was fortunate that my parents were Christians and my grandparents. In fact, my grandfather served many years as the superintendent of Sunday school, where we went to church and where I was raised. But I do think, you know, I answer to a higher calling. And a lot of what we do here on earth, in my opinion, is, you know, I think it's human nature for us to all want to please our our brother, our other individuals here on earth. But I think if I didn't have the knowledge that and the desire to want to do what I think my Heavenly Father would want me to do and to represent Him the way that I should, then I would make a lot more mistakes than I do now.
Yeah.
And I know that I'll answer one day for things that I do, and but I'm motivated because I want to try to please Him. I want to represent Him the way I should, and try to set an example, especially for my children and for others. There are many times I fall short with that, but I know that if anyone is, I know that my Lord and Savior and is always there for me. I may not always be there the way I should be for Him.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So the last year has been crazy for everybody. And, you know, being in a public role, I'm sure that you get complaints and pressure and, hey, why not? Why? I mean, and so many times people complain first and then think later. So how have you handled some of that, and how some of the pressures of COVID and, goodness gracious, everything else that's associated with that, from financial issues to family issues to probably even zoning issues, all kinds of things. How have you handled that, and how, what role has your faith played in helping you move through those kind of times?
It's been a situation where with COVID, we have all had to adjust. We had our commission meetings virtual for a while, started back, but we have, just like here at church, have socially distanced the chairs and things like that, and wear the mask and check temperatures before we come in. I think it's critical that we, in government and individually, we again set that good example as best we can for others. And we try to, as a county government, try to follow all the CDC guidelines to make sure we're doing everything we can to help people in our community stay safe. And I think it's important that we do that for a number of reasons. And we have dealt with COVID as best we can. We've learned through it. But again, our faith helps us to get by each and every day. And I think because of our relationship, we should always remember and have that hope that we do as Christians that unfortunately others may not have. We all go through valleys. It doesn't matter if we're Christians or not. It doesn't say when we're saved, you're never going to have any more problems, any more trouble.
Right.
But I think it just gives you a different outlook on life, and ensuring that we're trying to encourage others that may not have that walk.
Yeah. Well, you use the word adjustments, and so we've made some adjustments. So I think all of us have one way or another. Some of us don't like the adjustments at all, and some of them are like, oh, whatever. But what do you see as being some of the long-term effects and some of the potential continuing struggles that we're going to have personally and in our county?
Well, there have been individuals that have been impacted tremendously by COVID that have never gotten it. And I'll use an example. Unfortunately, my father-in-law passed away last year. He was in an assisted living home, and because of COVID, we were not able to go visit him for a period of time like we once had. My wife used to go by and see him nearly every day. And because of COVID and because of him being in an assisted living situation, she wasn't able to go visit. And there are other individuals that I know and loved ones that have lost family members, and in some situations, it wasn't even COVID related either, but because of COVID, they weren't able to go in and visit with them at the hospital like they normally would. And those individuals, unfortunately, are going to remember that for the rest of their lives. And some have even told me, we weren't even able to have a funeral like we expected to have for our loved one. And, those are some of the lasting things that those individuals will never forget. But I do think our society and our community in particular is resilient. I think some people, unfortunately, have dealt with some things that they didn't enjoy dealing with. But now, because it's prolonged and it's lasted longer than we thought it would, and is going to last longer than unfortunately we thought it would, that they have learned to make those adjustments, if you would, and to accept wearing a mask, or accept not going out to eat as often, or not going to events, or having even family gatherings like they are used to having, Christmas time, Thanksgiving in particular. So unfortunately, I think they'll appreciate those times that they were able to do that kind of thing. But going forward, we just, I think, have all adjusted some in those ways.
Yeah. Well, I think, there are a couple of things that I think have been particularly hard for people to get used to. in all this. And I sort of hope we never get used to those things. But the fact that families have not been able to gather around holidays and these special times, we have little children and everybody comes in for the birthday parties and all that kind of thing. And I hope people don't go, that's not so important, because family is really important. And and sometimes I get concerned for the children because I look and see they're having to be so distant from one another, and all the things that you learn at school when everybody gets able to get together. I mean, I learned how to do world peace on the playground. Nobody would ever listen to my plan, but I learned about that. But and the fact that that children aren't able to be taught spiritual things at church right now because of I've got to be concerned about safety and those kind of things, and I get concerned about what they're missing out on. But at the end of the day, I have to sit there and go, you know what? God's in charge. This is not a surprise to him. This is not some curse from God. It's none of that, but that he uses all things for good for those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And I mean, thanks so much for talking and telling us a little bit of your story and the role faith plays in what you do. And I'm so I'm grateful that somebody like you is leading our county, and we've got and I love living here. I'm not 27 years old anymore. I'm almost 31, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm probably going to be buried here, and there's no better place that I would rather be. And I guess what I wanted to ask you, just wrapping up, and was, the good things that happen in Coweta County as much as anybody, and so have you got just a couple things maybe off the top of your head you say things that you really appreciate and you love about living here your whole life, and part of the reason that you love being in Coweta County so much? Other than those big deer that are in your backyard. I mean, those are monster deer.
Well, mainly the people.
Yeah.
One of the greatest advantages I've had in being a commissioner is I've gotten to know a number of people that I wouldn't have otherwise, both at work for the county and in dealing with county issues and people that come into the county. And those, I've said numerous times, it doesn't matter if it's a church organization, it's a business, or it's a county government. You're only as good as your people. I've chosen to continue living here in Coweta County, mainly because of the people. Yeah. You don't have to look far to find good people in Coweta County. Yeah, I like that. You ought to put that on a t-shirt. Maybe Matt, one of our pastors here, he can work that up for us. But hey, thanks for watching this episode of Mosaic. I hope that you were encouraged and you found some hope in some of the things that Tim talked about today. I hope that if you're really not sure what's going on or what to do or where to turn next, that you can remember that no matter what, that God's in charge and that you can put your hope in him. And thanks again for watching. If there is something that we can help you with and a question that we could answer, we would love to do that. A couple ways you can do that. You can email us hello@southcrest.church. And again, that's hello@southcrest.church. And or you know what? You could come by here sometime. You'd see Tim here on Sunday mornings. He sits right over there most of the time. He and Lisa sit right there. And but you can do that. Or if you've got some other spiritual question that you'd like to ask us, you can text us the name and the number across the bottom of the screen, and we'll get in touch with you just as soon as we can. Thanks for watching. If there's anything we can do for you, please don't hesitate to let us know. And be strong and courageous, all right?